Good morning, Eddy Van Hemelrijk, across in, well, currently in Colombia.
Good morning, Morton.
So how are you doing over there?
Not yet Colombia. I'm still in Curacao. I fly to Colombia tomorrow. So.
Oh, it's tomorrow, right? Okay, yeah. And you're already very tanned, actually. I mean, how long ago did you leave Holland?
Actually, I'm correcting you again. I left Belgium because I'm Belgian.
Okay.
Yeah, so big competition between the Dutch and the Belgians. We make a lot of jokes about each other, like you probably do as well. So I left on April 4th to Curacao, so almost 10 days. So that's where the tan comes from, indeed. It's quite nice temperatures, 25, 26 degrees, sunny with a little bit of clouds. They don't give a weather forecast here because it's every day the same. So it's quite different with Belgium.
Yeah, they just pre-record it. Yeah.
They don't even broadcast it anymore because everyone knows. So quite different.
Well, the reason I'd said Holland was there, I think it was I recently watched your TED talk on Ikigai, which is something that we talk a lot about at Neo Academy. I thought it was a really interesting talk, and I seem to remember that you had worked at, when there was at Utrecht or where was it? There was a university that you'd worked at. Was it in Holland or
in the Netherlands? Because when I started on sustainability, PhD was in Antwerp, so my hometown in Belgium, 2002.
Okay.
The professor Aviel Verbrugge sent me to the Netherlands because they were much more advanced in research and sustainability. So I started at the University of Rotterdam, switched to the one of Utrecht, because they were more advanced in doing all kinds of research about sustainability. They were quite ahead, at least in research, compared to Belgium. So that's why, indeed, you picked up in the Ikigai that I did the PhD in the Netherlands, but did not defend it. I wrote it, but didn't defend it.
I see. Okay. Because this seems, and this is what we'd like to start talking about just now is the, I mean, you're on a journey just now, a kind of a very literal journey, which we'll come to in a second, but I mean, it's part of a wider sort of more metaphorical journey, it seems, just based on remembering your TED talk and looking at your background coming from sort of economics and making that shift into sustainability, and well ahead of the curve, I think. You know, there's it was quite early on, really. I mean, this was still, like, thematically, it was still emerging really as a field, at least in the mainstream anyway. I mean, how did that actually happen? You know, how did you sort of gravitate towards that? What was the impulse?
Well, it's an interesting story because I was educated as a really neoliberal economist at University of Antwerp, graduating in 1987, so quite a while ago. And it was all about shareholder maximization of profit and growth. I started in the business world for different companies like Johnson & Johnson, traveled a lot, doing global management. So I was into how can we expand our business? How can we grow? How can we have more profits? But by traveling, I had the opportunity to see both sides of the impact of our neoliberal model, meaning that we had very wealthy distributors. When I worked for the last company I worked for was Kipling, a backpack company with a monkey. We had partners all over the world, and they were the rich people, like in Brazil, very nice family, third generation of shoe shop owners, more than 200 shoe shops in Brazil. So they were quite wealthy, but at the same time, when I was visiting them, I had the opportunity to visit the favelas of Rio, where I saw quite a lot of poverty. And the same happened in South Africa when I saw our partner in Cape Town, who was the CEO of a large company on the stock market with the villa and everything what goes with it. But I also went there to visit the townships, which was like, wow, I sell here pretty expensive products to the happy few, but there are so many people that are suffering. So that was on the social side. And then on the environmental side, I was raised with very much with a big respect for nature, though I admit I flew a lot. So on the CO2 side, that's really bad. But when I was traveling, I saw how in the Philippines and Borneo, the landscape changed entirely from jungle to palm tree plantations. Same in South America. So it was like, Jesus, I'm part of that machinery of today, which is based on economic growth and profit maximization. And I said, this is not the way to go forward. I have kids. I want my kids to have a good life. I want my kids to have access to nature, to see the amazing wealth and biodiversity on this planet. And we're ending it by the way we live. Our behavior is so bad for and social and environmental issues, so that in 2002 I quit and I said I want to do something else. So I wanted to work in sustainability, but at the time they told me, well, you have an executive MBA, you know a lot about marketing and management, but you know nothing about sustainability. So I said, okay, then I write a PhD about it, and I will learn by writing a PhD what it's all about. So in 2002 was for me the turning point. And when I did that, of course, I needed an income, so I applied for a couple of universities to teach, start a small company, doing consulting on sustainability. So that's been the tipping point. The realization that future generations, my kids, my grandkids, will not be able to see the beauty of nature that I've seen during my trips, and how it's unfortunately changing. And it's not fair that we are the happy few and that not the whole society can benefit of a good life. And okay, the Ikigai concept later, but that's a turning point for me.
I mean, it seems like it reminds me of when we're talking about things like there's some interesting part of the field of ethics. You're talking about psychological distance. The more distance you have psychologically from the impacts of your actions or the connectedness of the other sequences of events around you, the easier it is to rationalize your part in this, which is why perhaps there's more, for example, more corruption and more bureaucratic systems, because you're just one link in the chain. You don't have that holistic, sense of things. But it seems like you stepped outside of that, and you were, through your travels, you were able to connect the dots and not just think in the terms of the linear economic model you were part of, but to see everything around it. And when you're faced with that, it's quite difficult to sort of say, I'm doing the right thing, I guess.
Once you see it, you can't turn it back. When you can start reading texts, you keep on reading texts, and it's true. And the holistic part is certainly the case. I think a lot of people are trapped in a specific cage, quite often a golden cage, and they don't want to get out of it. And even if they see what's outside, it's like a bit risky. And it was risky for me too, because I quit a job which was well paid, high status, and so on and so forth. A lot of people around me were saying, you're crazy. Why? I mean, I was a high potential in a large corporation, visiting the headquarters 4 times a year. So my path would have been relatively easy to become one of these global leaders in a large company, having lots of money, different houses and different locations. But I chose not to, which...
And I don't even need to ask you. I know you don't regret the decision.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm
just going to make that assumption.
I'm not richer in money, but I'm a lot richer in connections, in people that I meet, discussions we have, and now hoping to do something that's for future generations and current generation has a benefit. So that my kids have played an important role too. My son and daughter, because you see them growing up. You see, my son was saying, I don't want to have kids because the way we're treating our planet is horrible. We're already with too many. And I was like, oh, I want to become a granddad. So if he doesn't want to have kids, so fortunately he changed his mind a bit. He said, well, maybe if I have a daughter or a son, he or she will come up with ideas to solve all the issues. So,
Yeah. I always feel a little guilty about that, when the, even when we're sort of writing resources and workshops and courses and things aimed at young learners and teenagers around sustainability, and there's always this underlying sense of guilt, like it's saying, hey, sorry, we messed up the planet, and now why don't you learn about it? And
but it's true, and I admit too, I tell them, look, I mean, we were not, and it's true, we perhaps it's strange to say, but we didn't realize that the way we were impacting our planet, and also
most of us didn't know, perhaps.
Most of us didn't know. It should not be an excuse. That's why that's why you and I were trying to do something about it. So not only saying you new generation, young generation, you have to solve it all. No, we're certainly going to help you get there. We are quite often the ones who have more impact, given that we have higher positions or whatever. So it's a combination. It's going to be and. So our generation and the younger generation together.
Absolutely.
That make that change. I mean, Greta Thunberg, and then in Belgium we have Anuna and others. It's fantastic. I think it's great. They are rebelling. They're rebels. They're against. They want a system change, and that's what we need. We need a system change.
Yeah. Well, this is why I find your story so inspiring, because you made that leap. I mean, and again, it's at a time where I don't think it's so. It doesn't stand out as much these days. There's a lot. Sustainability has, a lot of allure in terms of a career path, even as a dimension to other more traditional career paths. It's more mainstream. It's more being talked about. But when you made that leap, it was a different world. And I wonder. I just wanted to ask you, what was that? Your initial kind of studies. I mean, you talk about a baptism by fire. I mean, to learn about something by doing a PhD is. Wow, I mean, that's one way to do it. But I mean, what kind of what did you see in education field around sustainability at that point? In terms of what kind of themes were they talking about? How were they approaching it? And have you seen much change from how it's dealt with in education from the time that you got involved to now? Have you seen much difference?
Yeah, fortunately, there is a change, and a big change, especially the last 5 years. So starting 2016, 17, so a bit before Corona hit us, and also Corona had for me, positive impact on, although I regret all the people that passed away because of it. Well, when I started the PhD, there was only, when I studied I'm a master in economics, applied economics, and an executive MBA. They didn't talk about it at all in the 80s, beginning of the 90s. It wasn't, they didn't talk about it at all. Impact on social, well, actually in a positive way. It was like, the more wealth we create, it will trickle down, it will make old people happy and rich. In the meantime, it's proven that's not the case. The trickling down doesn't work. In Belgium, I couldn't do a really PhD because there was only one professor who was really interested. And he said, well, I have to send you to the Netherlands because they have more stuff. And then if I came there, the PhD was about comparing the sustainability policy of an international headquarter and how it was applied in China and in Argentina. So I combined it with cultural differences because I traveled a lot. So it was, how do the Chinese react to a sustainability policy which was made by Dutchmen, because it was a Dutch company? How the Argentinians react on such a policy? And it has to do with cultural dimensions. Do they think long-term or short-term? Is it more masculine culture, which means more competitive, or is it more feminine culture, more cooperative? So there are a couple of cultural dimensions which you can really correlate with how people act towards environment and also social issues.
Was it Hofstede you were using for the framework?
Yeah, Hofstede and Trompenaars. Yeah, and
Fons Trompenaars. Yeah, that's right. I remember some of that.
Two guys, and actually it was, of course, it's a PhD, so a lot of maths and statistics and correlation. And actually, indeed, I could prove that there was a difference of how the sustainability policy was translated in China because of their cultural dimensions, and how it was translated in Argentina because of their cultural dimensions, and in the Netherlands. But your question was on education. When I started also teaching in 2002 when I started writing my PhD. Actually, they hired me for marketing purposes, for teaching marketing. But there was a course called environmental management, something like that, which you needed to have as a specific degree in order to work in a company, and everything was environmental related issues. And they asked me in November. The course started in September, but they couldn't find anybody to teach it. So they knew I was learning or writing a PhD. So they asked me, Eddy, can you start teaching it? So I bought myself a book of 1,000 pages, went through it, and just to give you the idea that it was quite not that common at the time. We only had 5 students a year. It's a university of 13,000 students. So just to give you And then after 4 years, they actually dismissed it because it was not profitable enough. There were not enough students following environmental management because it was not that hot at the time. So I'm talking about 2002 to 2006. So 2007, just to give you an idea that it didn't live. I mean, you had a couple of students who were really interested, who were really aware about the impact we were creating with our economy, but it wasn't the case. And now let's fast forward. The last couple of years, so I've been trying in the 2013, 14, 15 to organize events on sustainability. I got, to be honest, not that much support from my university, although I said, well, we can use it, we can attract students with it, perhaps fellow professors who are interested, also the companies. But there was no glue there until the last couple of years, because now the European Union has said circular economy is important, sustainability is important. Yeah. And suddenly what we see at our university, and I guess at a lot of universities, sustainability programs are popping up, sustainability summer schools are popping up, because there is money available for it now.
Yes.
So it's the money issue. We're going to talk about it later, I think, because it's related with my Ikigai story as well. So as long as people were not aware that it had or didn't get money to organize courses, it didn't happen. It's a bit black and white what I'm saying here, and it's not completely the case, because I was allowed to start teaching sustainability in 2014. I think it really started the courses, and there was interest, and now all students at our university, business students, they get it. They get Kate, donut economics. But still, I'm part of Rethinking Economics. I keep on talking, but if you interrupt me whenever you want.
Oh, please continue, yeah.
I started Rethinking Economics just in 2019, Antwerp. So it's a global movement. It started actually in the UK, Rethinking Economics. So there were professors and teachers almost 12 years ago that said, we need to change the way we teach economics. We only teach a very small part of what economics are. We don't teach feminist economics. We don't teach environmental economics. We teach neoliberal economics, macro, and the rational consumer that maximizes its own self-interest. The Smith. It's not. There are other forms. So they've been pleading, please, in universities, teach us a much more broader view on economics, pluralistic view. So I started with it in Antwerp in 2019, trying to influence the universities. There is also a partner in Leuven, which is another major university in Brussels. But it's difficult because I met in 2000, just before Corona, 2019, people from University of Leuven last year, master student in economics. And the last lecture, they got the donut economics of Kate. Like, okay, you've been studying economics now for 5 years. By the way, there is someone else who claims that a lot of the things we've been teaching to you are perhaps not correct. Just watch this video, and that's it. No, it should be from the beginning. We are disconnected from nature. We don't see that we are exploiting people in the South to have the wealth we have here in Europe and in the US. So yeah. Okay.
It seems like you're seeing the same thing that I've seen actually, and it's that sustainability it's suddenly a hot topic. There's suddenly money available. I mean, it's very easy to sort of blame education and say, oh, education should have done more, but also it's policy that governs funding and releases funding and sets targets and, priorities. So money talks, when it comes down to it. And we've seen the change when this happens and these targets come out and, everything shifts. But it does seem like a lot of institutions were just not ready for it. And, are still employing these kind of quite antiquated teacher-centered pedagogies, the lectures and things like that, and trying to talk about sustainability, which, I mean, it's like you said it perfectly. It's, about connecting with nature. It's about, ecocentric perspective, shifts in perspective. Where are we on this journey? Where did we take the wrong turn? How do we reconnect? What is empathy? Beyond generational divides, how do we address this? And lots of reflective practice. Instead, it's like, as you say, here's a bit stuck on the end, and it's not mainstreamed, which sustainability essentially should be mainstreamed through every subject. If you're doing engineering, you need to talk about sustainable construction. It should be embedded, but it's not quite it's not quite getting there. I mean, I wonder, you're immersed in this world. How do you remain optimistic? You know, where do you derive your the fuel to keep going? Because there must be some frustrating moments and a lot of a lot of kind of wrong turns and dead ends and things like that. I mean, you know, how do you keep going? How do you sustain the optimism? You appear to be as passionate as ever about all this. So where does that come from?
Well, first of all, I'm a born optimist. I heard Ralph Term saying that he's an optimistic maverick or something like that. I like that term. Ralph also writing about sustainability. I think it's youth that gives me the power to go forward. Young people. And I want to link that to perhaps to the Ikigai concept a bit.
Please, yeah.
Ikigai is a Japanese term. It means meaningful life, purpose in life. People in Okinawa island group south of Japan, they have a higher average of people above 100 years than in general. There are a couple of hot spots where they have this group of people average higher than 100. They search what happened there. Of course, it has to do with eating habits, sleeping habits, but also what they do in life. They connect with the things they love. So if I ask you what makes you stand up in the morning, do the things you are, hopefully you can come up with an answer that you say, well, I love what I do, which is the first part of the Ikigai. And I'm actually also good at it. It's a strength. It strengthens me when I'm doing it. Okay, you may feel physically tired, but you feel mentally strengthened after having been teaching a lesson, for example. And the third part of the Ikigai concept is, do you contribute with what you do to what the world needs? Which is already a more philosophical question or basic question, like, do you add value to others, whether it's biodiversity in the planet or whether it's humans on the social side? And the fourth part is, are you being rewarded for what you do? And of course, in the management books, Ikigai is used to, do you get money for it? Huh? Can you make a job out of it? That's the typical neoliberal way of thinking. The Japanese mean, do you get satisfaction out of it, fulfillment out of it, which is completely different than making money out. Now, if you look at that Ikigai concept, I was trying to also allow my young students, when they graduate, to build a meaningful life, so to find their Ikigai. And there I noticed that it's very difficult because the context is not allowing it. Our economic system at the moment is pushing people into jobs they don't like, bullshit jobs, like they're called by David Graeber, if I'm not mistaken. So bullshit jobs. A lot of people, and also, I mean, if I give workshops in companies, a lot of people in their 40s say, well, I became a civil engineer because my parents thought it would be a good job to have because you can make money out of it. But I wanted to be in music. But yeah, of course, with music, you couldn't make any money. So I ended up doing this engineering job. I'm now a director, a vice president, but actually I don't like it. So meaning he didn't find his Ikigai. So I started searching. So why is it that a lot of people know what they would like to do, whether it's in culture or art? We've seen that with Corona. Everything which was, for me, valuable was canceled. There's no money available for cultural anymore. People had to stay inside, no theaters, no concerts, no museums that you could visit. But that's actually what makes life worth living. So we need an economic system that fosters, that allows people to go for their dreams and to do meaningful work. And at the moment, our current financial / economic system doesn't allow that. So, but your question was why you're still optimistic? Because I see the next generation, my son is 26, my daughter's 23. Of course, they've been influenced perhaps by me to some extent, but also by the people around them. They live a different life. They're not going for that corporate career anymore, or some of them still do. But some say, hey, we want to do something useful. We want to, take our time to live. I think there's a shift in, when I graduated, you automatically went for a job and then a partner and a house and kids. So it was like you almost live to work to some extent. And I want people to work to live, to change it around. That should be happening. And it is. I think the next generation, and also Corona helped. I think that switch is coming. I mean, a lot of people had to stay home. And then they said, are we going to do the same job again? I mean, it's a lousy job. Why are we? So there was a dropout, a great reset in the US, apparently. US, a lot of people are quitting their jobs because they're saying, we're sick and tired of what we're doing. What's the point of doing it? Now, we need to have another system, well, kind of system to support us in one way or another. But so maybe there's a consciousness rise. I don't know if it's a rise or difference in consciousness level where people start to realize, hey, why are we here on Earth? What's the purpose of us human beings to be here on Earth? And if you talk about sustainability, I think regenerative business or regenerative economy is perhaps a new term, because sustainability is not enough. Huh? Michael Braungart, the founder of Cradle to Cradle, he said, imagine you have a wife and they ask you, how's your relationship with your wife? And you answer, well, it's sustainable.
Yeah.
It's not very exciting, isn't it? No, it should be
aim a little higher. Yeah.
Michelle Holiday, the age of thrivability. We should get a thriving society, a thriving planet again, which is alive. So we need regenerative practices, not sustainable practices. I think there is a next set coming. We need to move to businesses that regenerate life. That's for me the core.
I think you're absolutely right, and I wonder if you sort of have the same sense that there's the aspirational aspect is missing. It's like it's almost you're called ideological when you dare to hope for better than maintenance, and you dream that something is actually better, is possible, something better. But the conversations around, things like climate change and everything, they're very serious, of course, but it's a lot of information overload and a lot of people are very paralyzed. So climate anxiety, the tone is very doom and gloom, difficult to feel a sense of agency where it seems so distant and so vast at the same time. And so there's a lot of people in that state. And I wonder, during the sort of coronavirus time, quite interesting that there seems to be a sense of people just endlessly moving forward like a treadmill, and you don't get a chance to think when you're slaves to routine. And as you said, there's suddenly this pause and this reset. People are thinking about, what am I doing? What sound does the world make when it stands still? And what am I hearing? And this is what I'm really interested in now is, do you think that the conversation's starting to shift it a little bit? Because you use the word consciousness, and I find that we're living in a fascinating time where words that would have been written off in business schools, mindfulness, consciousness, empathy, you've got neuroscience, for example, telling us that when you meditate, the prefrontal cortex is lighting up. They can see it on imaging, and so people talking about the third eye in meditation are no longer written off as hippies. We're in an interesting intersection where we're able to use words like consciousness and a new conscious age and things like that, and it's becoming a little more mainstream. I'm interested in your take on that, because I'm very aware I could be in a complete bubble here. Do you find that when you're talking in companies and things like that, that you're able to talk aspirationally, you're able to talk about consciousness, you're able to talk about like a regenerative world and about, all of this as an opportunity to create something better? Are you able to make those arguments? Are you able to make those connect in more traditional settings?
It is happening. Before I answer that question, I wanted to add something about aspiration. You used the word aspiration. If you look at the movie business, Hollywood, it's all about a dystopian future. My daughter is studying story writing in Vancouver at the moment. Hopefully she's gonna write different stories for TV series and movies, because we need to change the storyline. So moving from dystopian, which is 90% of all the movies, that it's all about aliens destroying the planet, we're destroying the planet. We should get aspirational, positive stories out there as well. They sell less, I know, but they are important. So Vicky, if she's listening, please write a couple of stories and make films and sets which are more positive driven.
Less Mad Max, please. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
From time to time, I also enjoy that, but not too much. Now, answering your question, I was asked after the TED Talk to speak to several companies. So several companies invited me to talk about Ikigai and purpose in life, and also linking it to the Ikigai of the company. I mean, also, so companies, it's the same. A company should think, okay, what do we love doing? Why are we here together as a group of people, created this organization? What's the purpose? What do we like to achieve? And it should be more than profit making, because if that's the case, then we're still in the old paradigm. Secondly, what are we good at? What are the strengths we have? And then how can we contribute? How can we make this place, this planet, a better place? So there are companies, not that many, but that are trying to make that shift. Also because they feel, for the employees, a lot of employees are saying, hey, we want to be part of a story or a company with activities that matter, that do improve the quality of life of people on this planet. A lot of my students, hopefully, when they graduate, they're going to choose the companies based on, okay, is that the company doing bad for the planet or for society, or do they do something good? So talent, hopefully the smart people are going to be attracted to companies that do good stuff. Now, unfortunately, and we didn't talk about that yet, but I think it's important, is we still have a money system which is based on getting more. We live in a context with a lot of uncertainties. We are afraid of the future. So we need to save money, put it aside so that we're safe if something happens. So I think the crux is in our money system. Our money system has been created based on getting loans, paying it back with interest. So you have to grow. So you always have to get more. We need to change that more into better. So the reason that I'm in Curaçao now was not for holidays, because we published a book, Stef Kuipers and myself, from Haponomy. An article in a book called Thrive from Kees Klomp, with different authors like Charles Eisenstein, Daniel Christian Wall are in it. Unfortunately, I'm not that famous, but I was happy to be in it as well. And we were in the launch of the book in Amsterdam in November. And we were in the panel talking about the new money system. And someone from Curaçao came up to us and said, we're changing the way we are organizing our economy on the island, much more getting people involved, cooperative thinking. We need to change also the money system we're using. Could you come over to Curaçao and explain it to us? So we came and did a workshop about our current system, money system, and a new money system. There was someone from the government, and they said, "Oh, that's interesting. Can you talk to the director of economic development and innovation?" We had a session. So that's why I'm here in Curaçao. So I think we need, in order to get the Ikigai for everyone, we need to work on how we organize our financials and our money. It may take me too long, but basically we have a lot of uncertainty because we're afraid of having not enough money. I'm a big believer of a universal guaranteed income.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. Right.
Oh, okay. So answering your question, am I optimistic? Yes. I see the youth changing their mind. I see also companies answering that question. I think some companies are looking for more purposeful, meaningful work, because for them it's important, for the founders, for the CEOs, and for the employees. So the shift is happening. Is it happening fast enough? Maybe not, but at least you see the move. It's still greenwashing for some companies, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. And that's right. But yeah,
more and more, I think young people, for example, I mean, people are able to see through that more and more. I think there's a visceral reaction to inauthenticity. That's a very human thing. We're primed for it. And when you're in a company and they say, these are our values and blah, 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 blah. And then you see actions that counter it very quickly. And the interesting thing is that now, generations of people, they're not the generation that join a bank and work there for 30 years. They're gone, they're off, and they can do their own thing. And there's enough people around them doing all this kind of stuff to model that for them, to say this is possible. So companies won't survive if they're not walking the talk anyway. I think, you know, they're just going to have this huge turnover all the time. We're talking in Scotland, where I live, about a guaranteed basic income. I think they trialed it in Finland as well. It's becoming part of the national conversation. It's still considered quite out there by a lot of people. I admit it appeals to me a great deal, just to free up the survival aspect and the equity aspect, and just say there's a level playing field, you know, below which nobody can fall. You know, that there's a net there. There's not a scarcity model. It's like, right, you know, here's this kind of basis, but and to allow people to explore a little bit, to iterate and find out how they can best contribute. But you'll certainly have a more complex understanding of it than I will. I mean, you say you're in favor of that kind of model. So what's the key arguments for that?
Okay. First of all, I think you're lucky living in Scotland, because you're part of the economies of well-being. Scotland, Iceland, New Zealand, all with female prime ministers. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not. I mean, yeah. Instead of measuring GDP, measuring well-being, happiness, and the Bhutan Happiness Index, but I mean, I think it's important the way we measure things. We should get rid of the GDP. I mean, you used to be able to swim in rivers. Now you can't anymore, which is good for GDP because you have to build swimming pools. So it's ridiculous. We should get rid of GDP as a measurement. Now back to the universal basic income, guaranteed income, or whatever. I'm going to add with Haponomy. It's an NGO in Belgium doing a lot of research on it. Haponomy.org. Please share it also with the people here. It's also, they have an English website. They have different value models and also the financial model. If you look at behavior, we are afraid of uncertainties. The way to solve it is by having money. In order to get money, you need to work. And a lot of people just get a job because they need the money to survive. If you look at our neoliberal system, it's quite often based on giving the people the minimum so that the shareholders can make most of the profit. So you have to give them enough that they still believe and trust you, but not too much, because then they can start thinking, okay, I'm perhaps exaggerating a bit now. So if you give people a guaranteed basic income, it creates space in the head to become an entrepreneur. I think a lot of people that I know, young people, would love to start a company, but it's like, yeah, but where's the money coming from? Huh? In the beginning, it's difficult because you have to invest. Of course, you can get a bank loan, but on a bank loan, you have to pay a lot of interest, which then you get more stress because you have to make sure it works. Because if it doesn't, so a lot of people say, just go in a supermarket and work at the cashier. And it's also a job which is useful and has sense. But so if you give this, I mean, you said it's been tested in Finland, but also in other parts of the world, unfortunately not extensively yet. But if you give everyone a basic income from in the beginning where they have enough, and then there's no unemployment benefits anymore, you don't need all these mechanisms and control mechanisms anymore for checking if people are really unemployed or not. I think it will help also to get rid of a lot of costs. And it is, because quite often you get a question, yeah, but how can you pay for it? Well, money is created out of nothing at the moment. Huh? A lot of money has been made out of nothing. Central banks in Europe or in the US during Corona. So money is really not the issue. There is enough money available, or you can make money for it. Now, the guaranteed income is one part. Now, you have to be careful. If you keep on giving money to people all the time, you may get inflation. So in the model that we're proposing here at Curaçao, we add something. There is a limit on how much money you can save yourself. If you go above a certain amount, which can be discussed, you can say if you have more than 100,000 euro on your bank account, you will have to pay for that money to keep it on your account. So it's called, the official term is demurrage, or negative interest. It's happening in Europe. Quite a few banks in Europe, if you have more than 250,000 or 500,000 euro on your bank account, you need to start paying the bank. Now, why is that? Because the ECB, the European Central Bank, doesn't want banks to have too much money on their accounts, because money was created to circulate, not to be stored. So we need, and if you give a basic income on a monthly basis to everyone on a regular basis, if you need to find a way to destroy the surplus. So we're going to limit it with negative interest, which means, and I hear then sometimes rich people say, yeah, but I have millions, so I will be punished. Yes, you will be punished. But you can still have inequality. If you still want to work, you can, and you can still have more money. I'm not against you working hard and getting more money, but there will be a limit. We can also agree how much more will that be? How much more income do you think is ethically acceptable if you work hard to have?
Right.
There are people like Christian Felber, Austrian economist, who did that. There is a TED talk about him. He's saying, he asked people, okay, what if the lowest person in a company owns $1,000? How much do you think is acceptable for the CEO of that company to earn? Is it times, I don't know, times 5, times 10, times 100? How much is it? And then you can agree on what that is. At the moment, the average in the US is I mean, there are people making in the US 125,000 times more than the lowest person paid in a company. It doesn't make any sense, I think, personally. No. In Belgium, government officials, they have a maximum salary. There is a maximum salary. I think it's 750,000 euro a year. Yeah, the CEO of the train, because it's still public, there is a limit. So we have a guaranteed basic income, but in order to avoid inflation, in order to cut you keep on printing money for that. We have a maximum amount you can have in your account. We're going to top it off with negative interest, and that money will be used for common good projects. Yeah. So the money that, you can make up to, let's say, €1 million on your account. If you go above it, it's taken. And the money will be used for, I don't know, education, social welfare. So it's a combination of different things which already exist, which makes SUMSI, sustainable monetary system, which allows us to move towards a society where people do not have the uncertainty anymore, can more freely choose what kind of work they want to do. It also frees space intellectually. It's proven it. If you're under stress, financial stress, you'll drop IQ points.
Yeah. So, and associated health risks as well from stress. That put burdens on health systems, that have people dying before they need to go, that have, all kinds of problems coming from that could be.
But our current economic system likes us to get sick and ill, because then we go to the doctor, we go to the hospital, we do all kinds of scans, and companies are making money out of it. Yeah. And as long as we keep that system, it's very difficult, because actually, in China, the local doctor in the village was only being paid when the people in the village were healthy. When people in the village got ill, he got less salary. Right. It's a bit that idea. It's so we should allow. In the book we're writing, actually during the next 4 months, I hope to finish with Steph the book, which we can publish end of the year. We will explain what does it mean then for companies, for banks, for hospitals. They will be run differently. Now hospitals, we all had that crisis, not enough beds available in Belgium and in other countries. Mm-hmm. The last 10 years, they've been cutting beds all over the place because they were too expensive. And then we have a pandemic, and then suddenly it's like, we don't have enough beds. No, yeah, true. Also, you are to blame because you were working on efficiency and so on. Yeah. There are not enough nurses. Yeah, because they have to work night shifts and they're badly paid. If I go and work for a financial sector in a bank, moving assets from A to B, I make lots and lots of money. What's the added value of moving assets from A to B for our planet, for society? I don't know, but they get a lot of money. But people in healthcare, nurses, doctors, teachers, we don't have enough teachers in Belgium. Yeah. If you see, salary isn't bad, but so there is something fundamentally wrong with our system. And I believe guaranteed basic income combined with negative interests, where then the surplus of money you also use for common good projects, may be one way to live more relaxed and to move towards an Ikigai for all. And that was the reason I did that TED talk you listened to. I worked with Steph Kuipers of Economy, because I believe we need to change the economic system, the money system, in order to move towards a thriving society and a thriving planet.
It's a very compelling argument. I mean, it's great that this is actually, discussions you can have in sort of serious circles these days, because, it's very threatening to a lot of people. It's very, and it seems to me it's just part of a broader conversation, because the immediate reaction that you get to something like that, when you talk about negative interest, is like, okay, you're penalizing success. Success is some kind of human condition, confusing success with self-actualization, of course, and, this very linear way of thinking. But actually, it's like, well, why are you driven to accumulate so much? At what point do you equate that with happiness? It's part of the broader conversation, is why are you doing that? How much is enough? And of course, the stuff that you tend to get when you accumulate that anyway, it's generally not good for the rest of us in any
No,
case.
and also I know quite a few rich people, and they are not that happy because they always have richer people around them. So and they're still afraid that they may lose everything on the stock market when the crypto Bitcoin collapses or whatever. So even for them, but it's true, it's about power. Huh? So the word we didn't use yet, it's about power. And of course, it's first of all, it's not a communistic system, because we get that a lot. Are you a communist?
Yeah, I imagine you do. Yeah.
Communism was bad because it created inequality. It destroyed nature. So we do not want to have a communist system. So to make that clear. But what we want is, I mean, also, maybe some of these wealthy people will also see the benefits. They will be a lot more relaxed. They will still, you can still, so it's meritocracy, or how do you pronounce that?
Meritocracy, yeah.
Meritocracy. I'm not against it. I mean, if you have a good idea and you work hard, in our system, you can still make more money. Huh? But there will be limits. There will be, say, okay, this we feel as a community is the maximum, that because of all the efforts you do, you really deserve to have more. But a lot of the people today who have a lot of money, they didn't earn it themselves. It's their forefathers. I mean, it's family, wealth. Okay, you have real entrepreneurs that really started from nothing. But also, if you ask them the question, okay, you have 5 houses on this planet. Huh? The 6th house, how much value? And that's typically utilitarianism, so marginal utility. So it stops at a certain point now. So maybe we all allow you, because you work hard, to still have 3 houses on this planet somewhere. That's fine. But 5 is perhaps too much, or isn't it? So, but it's true. It's power. So what we will do with our financial sustainable money system is we will distribute power a lot more. Because there will be a lot less inequality. Why is it also, maybe one thing, then I stop talking about it. If we've seen in history, if you looked at history, the moment the inequality became too high, you had revolution. In France, kings were killed. In Russia, the Tsars were killed. So I think the rich people, very wealthy people, have to be careful, because at a certain moment in time, the population will rebel and revolt. So there is a border. So I think it's in their own self-interest to say, okay, this is, but they can still work hard and make more money. I'm happy with it, and have good ideas, and then deserve more. Fine.
Yeah. I mean,
but that's the thing. Better.
The way things are, I find people can be a little short-sighted. I mean, one of the things, I mean, I read a lot of history. I love history, and it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes, you see how long change needs to take place, with their short sort of lifespan, and, you get a little bit impatient. But the other thing is, through the historical lens, I mean, there have been so many realities through history, so many societal structures that are different to that which we experience now in different cultures. And those were normal and the norm to people at the time, and then they changed and became something else. But there's a sense of talking to people sometimes like that things can't be changed, and how could we possibly do something different? And it's kind of confusing very real things like the need to self-actualize, the need to be part of society, with other things that are more narrowly defined, whereas something else is possible. And that's really what I wanted to ask you, because you will, of course, get skeptics and cynics, so there's no shortage of those, and about the way to actually make this change. I mean, we're talking about, systemic change, and you could say, okay, maybe it begins in education, maybe it begins, you know, at home, maybe it begins, but you're talking about something like Curacao. Do you think that probably the best way to do it is to model it, is to get to kind of support communities or even islands or nation states to model this and show the success to others? Do you think that's the best way to make the transformation create a ripple effect?
That's what we are aiming for. Now, perhaps going back a bit on what you said, the advantage of, I'm 56 now, if I'm not mistaken, above 50 you stop counting. So people saying you can't change stuff. I mean, nobody thought that East Germany and West Germany would be united. I've seen that happen. Nobody believed that the Soviet Union would collapse. I've seen that happen. I mean, there are a lot of things that people say, no, can't happen. No, if you know history or you lived part of it, you see that major changes do happen. So why not this time? So now to come back to your last question, yes, we are really eager to start modeling. We model in a village in Belgium. We have now a request of a filmmaker slash change maker in several African countries who's giving free money. We sit together with him again next week. He will introduce our system when in Congo, Gambia, and maybe a third country. In different villages, they will start implementing the concept of SAMSI. We hope that indeed in Curacao, it also will become a model. For us, it's a good thing because it's an island. So it's a bit, although it's not a closed economy because they import and export a lot. But it works. To explain you how the process would work, it works from bottom up and top down. I think we need it from different ways. We met with different NGOs here. They are making, for example, food forests. They're inviting locals to work together on food farms. They let people vote on the currency that they created, what to do with the money. So I think it needs to start bottom up. I think we need to be ready because the system is going to crash. For the listeners, 2008 was a light financial crisis. We're heading towards a much worse financial crisis, which will affect, it will be more dramatic. So it's good that we start having some alternatives ready, not only ours, perhaps other people will work on good alternatives as well. So the moment everything collapses, we can still continue working together, helping each other, making food for each other, and so on and so forth. So bottom up, we need to do that. So we're doing that. At the same time, if we can get policymakers involved who support us with implementing certain laws and regulations, that will, of course, like we've seen now with sustainability, Europe said circular economy is important, financial means are being freed for it, and everybody is changing and wants to become circular. So the same could happen. Our dream, of course, is to have it on a global level, not only on a country level, but we need to model it. And then, of course, we will find perhaps some bugs in. Actually, Steph, who is my friend, it's his idea. He's an IT guy. He said, why can't we solve the climate crisis? I mean, we know it's a systemic fault. Just write a new program and implement it. Why is that not happening? It's not that difficult, is it? And then he discovered that the money is the problem. The money is the money is created, and you have to return it to banks with interest. So you keep on growing. And in a growth economy, it's not working. So that's a bit of the background. So yes, modeling on a global level, on getting transition. So, and then hopefully we're ready by the time the big financial crisis hits us all to say, guys, this is working in Curacao. This is working in these African countries and these Belgian villages, because you can do it on city level. People of the donut economics, we would love to work together with them. We believe Kate wrote an excellent book. So donut economics, for those who don't know, it's social foundation. That's the bottom of the donut. The outer circle is the environmental ceiling. We all have to have our people living on it, not in the hole, because then you're not have enough. You have poverty. Not outside, because then you're affecting biodiversity, climate, and so on. She wrote that book, but she doesn't say how to get there.
Right.
I think with what we are modeling and working on, it's a path to get there. It's a kind of a solution to move towards us all living in a thriving society and a thriving planet. So, and I'm sure there are other ideas around which are in line, or so we're open for all kinds of criticisms and so on and so forth. But we need to get ready, because I want to have my kids and grandkids to be able to live together with all people on this planet, and have a safe environment and natural environment. I've been to Singapore. They built a dome in which they have copied a jungle and so on for future generations. No, I don't want to have that dome. I want to have the jungle. So
that's terrifying. It's terrifying. Absolutely. And I mean, it's good that I'm picking up on some of the language you're using, and it sounds, I love the way that you're just presenting it. You're not saying we've got a solution. You're talking about iterating. You're talking about a path towards a solution. Everything you're talking about is bottom up. It's collaborative. It's trying, and it's having conversations and just doing something. Just motion in the right direction is all we can ask right now, isn't it? Because you're actually taking, you're developing agency with every step you take. You're saying, I can do something because look, I am doing it, and just changing the conversation. Does that characterize then the journey that you're on just now? You're away for what, 4 months?
yeah.
Is that what you're doing? You're basically just out there to learn, try, influence, be influenced, share, grow. Is that what characterizes what you're doing just now?
Yeah, and I realize that I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do so. A lot of people can't. There is a palm tree being, I don't know, a lot of wind blowing here. So first of all, I know I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that. I asked my university to have a kind of sabbatical leave for the second semester, so that I don't have to teach on campus, but online. And I needed, I think, this is the third sabbatical that I take. I would like everybody on this planet to be able every 5 to 10 years to take off for a couple of months. I think we should create a system where that's possible. Not a system where you start working at your 18 or 21 till 65 and then you're going to retire and enjoy life. No, we should be able to enjoy life during all these working years.
Yeah.
But I think it's good that after 5 years doing something, you take a bit of time for yourself, for your family, for whatever. So we should build in a system in which on a regular basis, you can take these sabbaticals, and everybody should be able to do that because it's refreshing. I do this because I want to refresh. I want to meet people, have these conversations, come back enriched, not financially at all because it costs money, but enriched with ideas. And this conversation, I learned from you. You gave me ideas like, okay, I can add that, and that's good stuff. So we all work 40 hours a week, which is ridiculous. I mean, even the economists in the 20s and 30s, Smith said, okay, we should be able to work 20 hours a week. And the other 20 hours a week, we do volunteering work, we go work on the fields and so on, community building. That's where we should move towards. We're 7.8 billion people. We're going to have automation. We're going to have artificial intelligence. How are we going to employ all people on this planet to work, and why? What's the purpose? Okay, we need to be able. We need to have people that make sure that we have food and so on. They have fishermen. Yesterday we bought fish from fishermen who came in and then they cut it for us, and then there was a place where you could cook it. But it will still happen. It will still have. So, but we need. So the 4 months now for me is a kind of resourcing. Meeting, connecting, taking time to write, to think, meet my daughter who's studying in Vancouver. So that's at the end of the trip, I will meet her. She's there for a year. So in June, I will meet her. That's so family is also is part of it. And it's fantastic. I mean, this week on the island, and we didn't plan a lot. We had one workshop planned, and then based on that workshop, but these people you need to meet, and you need to see these people, and then in Colombia, I don't have any planning in Colombia. I just go to Bogota. There are a couple of people, Jew Brewer. I hope to be able to see him and to interview him. And others, let's go with the flow to some extent. And then I come back beginning of August. And of course, I need to work hard again to make money in order to pay the bills. Yeah. But I don't know if that.
But enriched. But I mean, certainly a better version of yourself when you return. And it's circular, isn't it? I mean, you're not collecting these ideas to hoard them. You're collecting them to share and pass on and synthesize and use your gift of communication to be able to engage others with it. And that's what it's all about. You know, it all just keeps moving around. Just to kind of, because I know we're running out of time, just wanted to ask you just one final thing, because talking with you, I feel energized. You know, I was actually quite tired today, and I feel like I've got more energy at the end of the conversation than the beginning, which is a really good sign. I don't often feel like that talking about things like sustainability. It's a passion of mine, but I find that the narrative is fatalistic, and it's, you know, the discourses of delay, all the million reasons to, you know, the kind of zooming in on the wrong things and demonizing others and focusing on this the distractions of the personal carbon footprint and all this kind of stuff, you know. For families out there, young people, families, could even be educators who want to engage in a more positive way, in a more aspirational way, in a way that helps them feel like they can do something. Is there any advice you would give to them to kind of just shift the narrative in their own circles?
Mm-hmm. Well, first thing is take time to reflect. Take time to reflect about what's really valuable to you. Make a list of the things you consider for yourself to be important in life. And it can be meeting family, working on fields, or whatever it is. List it up and then say, okay, how much time do I have to do all this stuff? And how can I make more time for it? And start deleting stuff that you consider to be not that valuable anymore, and try to do more of the things that matter to you. It may involve having financial consequences, like instead of working full-time, deciding, okay, I'm going to work 80% and I take a day off, and I use that day to do the stuff that I really enjoy doing. I will have perhaps less financial income, but perhaps still enough to do that. So moving step by step towards living the life you would like to live, and daring to take some risks. So it's sometimes risky. It's frightening, like, yeah, but will I make it if I stop working 100% and start working only 80%, for example? But try it, see how it goes. Maybe you will like it, maybe you find other ways, or maybe you can find out that you can do with less, and you can say, hey, maybe I can work only 60% of my time, paid job, and doing the 40%, and maybe starting to doing something creative for which you perhaps can even make money by selling the stuff you make in your free time or whatever. So and for youngsters, I would say choose where your heart goes. My son chose to become a movie maker when he was 16, and he went for it. And I could have said, movie maker, wow, how are you going to make money with that? I mean, yeah, it's not working. Or you have to be, I don't know, Spielberg or something. So go for business. No, allow your kids to go for what really drives them. And of course, not all know at the age of 18. I know that. But then they can try out stuff, do things that perhaps you never did before, experience, reflect about it. Did you like it? Did it give you energy? At the end of the year, I do that. I look back. What were the stuff that I done last year? What gave me energy? What made me lose energy? And how can I make sure that next year I do more of the stuff that give me energy and less of the stuff that's... And of course, you don't get to 100%. And you never. I also have moments of stuff that I have to do that I really don't like, but okay, someone has to do it. But I managed it pretty well. So I am optimistic. Coming back to your first reflection about sustainability and being negative about it, there is a lot of power. We're not alone. There are a lot of people on this planet that are trying to make a difference and moving towards a positive evolution. So it's amazing how many people you meet. Also on this trip, I met already this week, that are making a change. It is happening. It is happening. So it doesn't get in the news that often, because the news, the media, it's all about the war, the pandemic. They try to keep us afraid so that we don't think. Yeah? That's exaggeration. Yeah. Yes, but take the time to think, and don't let you influence. Switch off media for a while. Don't go too much on, or find media that also brings some positive stuff. So otherwise we get depressed. And then if you get depressed, you go in a circle and move downwards. You get fear, anxiety. No, No, I do believe, I hope that by 2050, 2060, we start seeing the impact of people saying, this is enough. We want to revive our planet. We want to make, I mean, stop war. I mean, happening with Ukraine is insane. I thought we were becoming smarter, but we're unfortunately not in this case. But yeah, but it's us, citizens, and that's the internet. The internet, okay, got some social media, but on the other hand, we can connect, listen to podcasts like this one, which our generation couldn't. We were limited to what we could find in newspapers. Now you can join people all over that and do that. Stop. I mean, I tell my students, you will have, after, when you graduate, you have a lot of contacts, a lot of people you know. Look around them, who are worth keeping as friends and who perhaps not, because they drain your energy. Keep one or two, because sometimes it's useful, but don't take too many. Well, these are a couple of ideas. Iterate, try out, make time for the things that matter, dare to take some risks, take some steps to move towards the life you want to live, if you're not living it yet. If you live it, if you live your Ikigai, people are doing it.
This is the great thing about talking to a TED talker, Eddie, is that you automatically summarize your points as well, which I love. It just makes it so much more digestible. It's great, and it's super clear. And a couple of things that stand out there, I just want to leave people with this. Just the things like that, you know, just you saying we're not alone. It is happening. You might not see it, but it is happening. These are incredibly powerful things that I think we just, you know, if nothing else, if we're able to just get these messages out into education, sense of community, sense of empowerment, an emphasis on doing what you love, you know, avoiding the things that drain your energy, doing more of the things that give you energy. I think I feel instinctively that there's an organic path from there to a better society. You know, I think deep down we all know this to be true.
So let's all work to make it happen.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Everybody on its own speed and so on. So no pressure for them, to make sure no pressure.
But it's been an inspiration, Eddie. I mean, certainly there are fountains and there are drains in this world, and you're certainly a fountain. So
thank you.
So thank you very much for your time and for your inspiration, and give me a whole lot to think about. And I'll make sure we share Japonomy.org as well. Got a few things. Japonomy. I'll get that out there to people as well. And thanks for taking your time, and please let me know how you're getting on with the rest of your journey as well. I'll be following it with interest.
I enjoyed very much the interview. You're a very good interviewer, really. Thank you for that, Mark. And I have a vlog on YouTube, a YouTube channel, so I do post regularly what's happening on the trip. It's my full name, Eddy Van Hemelrijk, on YouTube. So if people want to follow the vlog, they are free to do so. I don't know how much access to internet I'm going to have, but in the jungle in Colombia and afterwards in Costa Rica, but in Canada for sure it will be a good connection. All the best. Have a good life. That's my wish for you.
Yeah, equally for you, Eddie. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today, and all the best for the rest of your journey.
Okay, bye.
Okay, take care. Bye now.
Take care.